Hello and welcome to the first of these many new format Fuse community calls. My name is Ian Kane and joining me today we have Carl Anthony, BD at Fuse Network. What's up, Carl? How you doing today?
All good. How you doing, Ian?
I'm all right, man. I'm pretty hot though. I've got to say it's beautiful weather, so I'm getting hot here in the office. But we'll persevere. We'll persevere. We'll keep going through.
Good for you.
But I'm mainly super excited about the call today, and what with it being the new format and all, it's quite exciting. We're trying new things to communicate with our community. So we're here to update the community about all things Fuse and also to answer all the questions we've been collecting in the build up to this call. So we put a shout out on Twitter and we've gathered up a whole bunch of questions. Some really excellent questions came our way and we'll do our best to answer all of them in as much detail as possible. Similar questions, we batch them together. So if you're one of the curious people that asked the question, just listen out and surely we'll have answered it in some way or other. The Fuse community call is just one of many new outreach efforts to ensure our community is as informed as possible, and we'll present all our ongoing developments at these monthly calls and discuss immediate plans. So if you're new to Fuse and this is like your first interaction, let me just quickly give you a 411. So Fuse Network is a layer 1 EVM compatible blockchain. What does that mean? Well, at a glance, it means that dApp developers building dApps on Ethereum and other EVM chains like BNB chain, Polygon and more can very easily launch their dApps on Fuse Network, alongside off-the-shelf solutions to aid with user onboarding and fiat on-ramping. Fuse is a compelling choice for builders that want to scale to mass adoption levels. Our ultimate vision over the next few years is to have 1 billion plus active users on Fuse, taking advantage of the range of applications in different sectors, from personal finance, the sharing economy, events, hospitality, ticketing, e-commerce, and of course, DeFi and NFTs. So how are we going to achieve all of this? Well, needless to say, we've been working pretty hard already. And the purpose of this call is to outline the future. So without further ado, Carl, are you ready? I'm ready.
Well, good. Let's get it.
Let's get it, man. So we're going to dive head first in the community questions first and outline some of the plans at the end for the rest of 2022. So I'm going to go straight in, Carl. We've got 5 questions from one user, and I'll just read them out as we go. So his first question, he wants to know what's the focus of the Fuse team over the next 12. He actually says 12 to 24 months, but I would say let's keep it at 24 months. In blockchain, 2 years is a long time, right? So what's the focus of the Fuse team over the next 12 months?
I mean, I think that's the same with everybody's in the same boat, right? We've been in a bear market for a little while. I mean, you can actually look at a panel we did in Amsterdam previously, and I do remember actively saying that we're in a bear market and getting actively voted down by the entire panel in the audience. Who was right?
Carl was right.
Right now, who was right now? But I mean, I'm not happy about being right, but I did feel that way, right? And it's not the first time we've been down. We know this is a market and it goes that way. So really, in these times, you get 12 to 24 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. I guess short, medium, and long term. It's really about building, right? It's really about onboarding people. Money's not crazy anymore. So if you think about where we were in kind of February, March, there was a lot of DeFi for DeFi, and it would have been irresponsible to our stakeholders as a chain to not be looking to embrace the trends. But Fuse, from its very first instance, has always been about mobile payments. Has always been about bridging Web 2 over to Web 3. Has always been about making the blockchain technology accessible and almost ubiquitous in its use for normal users. You don't have to be a sophisticated user to do this, right? So you want to be able to fundamentally go there. In your mum and my mum, I don't know how blockchain savvy your mum is, right? My mum is not, right?
She's like Nakamoto, mate. Like she knows everything.
They should be able to derive the benefits of the blockchain. They should be able to send money to each other. Let's say they're in different countries. They should be able to send that money without actually having to know that, but do it in a format they understand. So they should be able to send dollars to each other, derive the benefit of being able to kind of do this intercountry remittance without it costing anything, right? So they should be able to do that. That's always what we believe. So it's making sure that we can now rebuild on that, get more businesses realistically using it, get more partners and providers that provide real world services. So we're talking to a number of them at the moment, get them on board, get them integrated, and get more real world use cases out there. There's still a desire out there. You see a lot of businesses want to derive that. It's a challenging environment. They need every edge they can get. And traditional payment rails are expensive, and they're bureaucratic, and they're kind of verbose in the way that they manage their kind of policy. And it's challenging for businesses, especially small businesses, to come through. I mean, so really, yeah, it's like, how do we now readapt and refocus to what we run? It's not to say that we were not doing that during that period of time, But
Yeah.
we have to respect market trends, and we've always wanted to get back to this.
Would you say then that the bear market hasn't really changed the focus of Fuse as such? It's really just given you more space to achieve what you wanted to achieve? Because the question he's asking is the sudden bear market, which I wouldn't say is so sudden, as you rightly said as well, is it changing the focus of the team? And I would think that the answer is really kind of no, really. We've always been pushing this direction, right?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, we've gotten busier, right? So if anything, like opportunities are there, and actually opportunities are now becoming more affordable in the market. Some of the things that we were going after, there was a priority to focus on growing chains. And sorry about that, 1 second, I thought I had my focus on, apologies. No, there was a focus on growing chains, and costs were kind of exploding through, and the likes of Polygon and Avalanche were handing out ginormous grants. It makes it very hard for a project like us that have bootstrapped this from the very beginning. We didn't raise crazy money. We've always bootstrapped. Everything we've built has been on a minuscule budget in comparison to a lot of these other players out there. But now it's not about that. Now it's about what can you deliver from a functionality perspective? What does your team look like in terms of delivering business outcomes and business goals? How can you support these chains? Okay, you can go and get $500,000 from another chain and like build on the chain. Probably they'll give you no service after that, and you just are left on your own to kind of go through that. But the Fuse network has always been about onboarding quality partners, onboarding quality strategic partners, and like seeing that through and working in partnership to deliver the ultimate vision of making the blockchain accessible to everybody else.
I like it. And I mean, in terms of like the team and the growth of the team in this phase, we've seen that some companies are hiring and some are scaling back. And I see that Fuse is hiring. So what kind of profiles is the team looking for right now, and why? Like in terms of the sort of future plans, who are you looking to onboard right
now? We're a very culturally driven company. So, I mean, to say we always want, obviously everybody needs devs, everybody needs smart PDs, everybody needs this, but I would just broaden that and just say, look, the key thing for Fuse is that we want smart people with purpose, right? Smart people who have an ideological belief in this, not people who make, there are some people who come into the space that maybe think, oh, okay, this is the next thing that we want to go with. Smart people with purpose can work, right? You can be coming from Web 2, but it's not like a lot of us in the Fuse team, for instance, have been in the game quite a while. Mark's been in it since 2012. I've been in since 2012. Like it's been a long time coming. Like a lot of the guys, 2014, 2013. So it's not our first rodeo in terms of the way things are going. And understand that we need to respect the market. Of course, we can't go crazy and like hire 50,000 people. But we also understand that there is a requirement to still continue to grow and build. And some of the plans that I've outlined in terms of what we want to do 12 to 24 months, they're going to require new people as we get on board.
I think it's a positive sign as well of growth in a bear market, right? Like it's some call it a bear market, we call it a builder's market, in my opinion. Like this is the time when the serious projects really get their heads down and get that little space just to realign and reassess, right?
It's not just, I think people often think builders is just like, okay, we get devs and we build. It's not just that. It's like you have to build like some structure to the organization so that you can help yourself scale when things pick up, right? This is a great time to introduce like new ways of working or new, I come from a corporate background. It's not my first bear market, or it's not my first downturn I've had to go through. It's understandable. Markets ebb and flow. If they didn't ebb and flow, I mean, they wouldn't be very healthy. So
no. That's a really good point. And I think it echoes the fact that, as you say, Fuse is not a new project. We've seen this before. We've been here before. Most of the people on the Fuse team have been in this game a long time. We've seen all these things before. They don't scare us as such. And also, just to touch on something else you were saying there about the money that's handed out by networks like Polygon and other chains, money doesn't always mean success, right, Carl? And I think you touched on it there, that a lot of it is to do with the hand-holding as well, that you can have a great idea, but if you don't have the support, technically, marketing, sales, the full package, it's pretty difficult to launch, right? And one thing that Fuse is trying to do is be more hand-holding with their clients, right, as we move forward.
We want our community to be on board with the projects that we bring in, and we go out of our way to make sure that we do AMAs, and we'll write up an article. If you look at the Medium, it's fantastic. It's very, very in depth in terms of the technical partnership and what it's trying to achieve. Sometimes there are a lot of questions. Maybe, in my opinion, sometimes there are too many questions from the content writers in terms of what's going there. But I think that's a good thing. Like the fact that I think there's too many questions. The community want to know about these things. They want to see how they go through. And you're correct. That grants don't always mean success. I think that in this industry, the new metric for the kind of 2021 season has been TVL, right? So TVL is that new metric, and I guess you can reverse back and you can look to kind of when the technology companies came on the scene, and they were all accruing data, but everyone's plan was accrue the data, profit, right? So it was like this kind of, nobody really knew what they were going to do with the data, and there's now a commodity that's more expensive than oil, right? So a very interesting kind of journey that they went through. And TVL may or may not be our final kind of metric of success as we go through, but at this moment in time, it is not the ultimate metric. It is by no means the ultimate metric in terms of that.
No, I would agree with you absolutely, Carl, and argue that while TVL is a valid metric, the fact that it's measured in the way it's measured is also a bit tricky, in that when token values fall, so does TVL in dollar value. So these things have an impact. Then you see sensational headlines, TVL down 50% in dollar value. Well, that's because ETH went down, right? So I don't think it will be the be all and end all. And I actually believe that there's other metrics more important to do with dApps, whereby unique active wallets, transactions, these seem more important to me. If dApps are gaining growth and audience on the network, then they're bringing eyeballs to Fuse and what Fuse can do. So for me, I think it's not about one metric; it's about putting them together, right?
Yeah, of course. It's a whole picture. And I'm not claiming to have the answer, right? We're not claiming to have the answer. We're looking at this as a holistic thing, right? Can we get on? How many wallets can we get on? How many transactions can we support effectively? How easy is it for users to come in on-ramping their fiat? How easy is it to move between chains? How is it easy to transact while they're on Fuse and use other chains? Like, these are all things that are kind of very important in the multi-chain future. We may or may not be correct about believing that the future is multi-chain. I think the future is multi-chain. I just don't think if you look back at kind of the internet, if I keep going back and you look at these different things, but if you look at like kind of the internet, you probably had about 10 ISP providers at the beginning of the internet. And you had like AOL and some of the ones I can't even remember now.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like you don't
randomly, AOL make a tremendous amount of money from direct debits that people didn't cancel from back then. So they still make their money from this place. So kind of, it's kind of a crazy situation.
I never thought about that, actually. I never thought about that. You're so right. But yeah, no, it's a similar situation. And I think we'll see how it evolves over time. But many questions I've got here relate to exactly those things: onboarding, other sort of adoption issues. So we'll get into those in a second. But another good question here as well. So Fuse recently raised 5 million from Techtoner. What's that money going to be used for? And then the second part of that question: did Fuse decide to take the investment from Techtoner and not from somebody else? And will Techtoner be influencing the future direction of Fuse? So first, maybe tell people what Techtoner is for those who don't know, and then
Yeah, sure. So Techtoner is a publicly traded, so it's on the Israeli stock market, company that is specifically designed as a vehicle to invest in digital assets. From a regulatory perspective and the frameworks that they'd have to go through, it's a very challenging thing to accomplish, right? So they've gone there to kind of connect those two money markets, both the digital asset crypto market and the kind of public markets that exist. They have a wealth of experience. They have founders from Bancor. They have incredibly influential and wealthy people from Israel. They have one of the top 5 richest people in Israel that are part of the company. And they bring a wealth of experience from like an operational perspective, from understanding communities and in making smart and savvy investments, right? So this is where they come from. And I guess this is part of the reason I'm answering both questions in kind of parallel here. So this is part of the reason why Techtoner was an attractive proposition for us. The money that comes in, of course, I mean, let's reverse back to another point I was making. I did mention that, we're founded in 2019 and we bootstrapped this project, right? Our initial raise was like $2 million, maybe like 2.3, I think, if we look at it. But we built this network on $2 million and run that in comparison to some of the raises that you see now. People are raising $40 million, $100 million. But we're competitive. We're up there. We're delivering real world solutions. We've got projects out there. If you look at Thailand, we have active projects where people are utilizing the blockchain to transact. We have integrators, we have builders on chain that are able to implement real world solutions. And we did that with nothing, right? So we did that. Well, I say nothing. That's a
Well, 2 million sounds a lot, but in this, it's not really, is it? When you're thinking of a team of 30, 40 people, you've got wages. It's gone very fast. Like, it's not a lot, really, is it?
we embrace the grind, right? We embrace the grind, and we made these things happen. And so we were in this bootstrapping phase, right? But the reality is that we're now moving into a growth phase. Fuse is incredibly robust. It's an efficient network. It's incredibly cheap to transact on. Has a great wealth of different DeFi projects and real world projects that exist on it. And we need to enter into a growth phase. So why do we need the $5 million? We needed partners that would be on board as kind of strategic, long-term partners who believed in the success of the project. And we just needed to grow, right? So this is now our growth phase. And even then, like 5 million, okay, it's twice as high as what we raised initially at the beginning end of it, but we're still not raising. I mean, people raise more money for hacks, right? So people like Ronan raised more money for losing money.
Steal more money than this, yeah. I know. I get. Yeah, no, we get the point is clear though, Carl. It's like you say, other networks have got huge budgets to play with and can go out and achieve all sorts of things, but we're still competitive on this small budget. So imagine what we're going to do once we start scaling out. I think it's pretty exciting stuff, right?
Like, it may sound like we're talking about other networks quite a bit. We're not running a comparison, right? We're doing our own thing. I'm just saying we're doing it in our way, and we're going through that phase. I just want to contextualize that. If people are worried about what other competitors are doing in this kind of thing, that's fine. But we're very focused on delivering ubiquitous payment solutions that leverage the blockchain.
Okay. So with that in mind, I've got a question. This is another set of questions from another user. So thank you for those questions. They were really great. I hope we've answered those for you. So one person is asking, saying that they say that 90% of today's existing cryptocurrencies won't survive the bear market. Do you think the Fuse blockchain is in the 10%? If so, why? Pretty good question.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah. Of course. I mean, how many businesses have been around for more than 200 years, right? Generally, let's broaden that thing. It's an economic behavior that is not like unique to the blockchain or the crypto space.
Yeah.
Do I believe the Fuse is in the 10%? Of course, I believe the Fuse is in 10% because we're having this conversation. We're doing these activities. We're still here. There's a bear market. We didn't run. We're still here. We still want to work. 100%. Yeah, I believe it in the 10% because the reality of it is that when we really want to get that mainstream adoption, when we want to make things happen, it's going to have to be through real world mainstream adoption. And I see a lot of activity around L2s at the moment and around scaling.
Yeah.
It's my personal opinion. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it's my personal opinion that in terms of the L2 scaling solutions that are out there, we're not necessarily scaling for the onboarding of the next 1 billion users. We're scaling for the existent billion users that we have. I feel like there's a MetaMask wall, right? So there's a wall for MetaMask, and everybody's kind of hit that wall, and there are many more people going to climb over that wall. There are a lot of people like me and you and the people asking these questions who are technically competent enough to utilize those solutions and work out how to secure their own money and manage their own money. Mm-hmm. But there's another 9 billion people on the other side of that wall that probably are not going to scale that wall, right? So this is where, harking back to that phrase where we're trying to bridge Web 2 to Web 3, how can we make Web 2 sign-ons synonymous with Web 3? So how can you begin to do single sign? There are plenty of companies out there, Arcana, Acon, who help you deliver solutions where you as a user can sign on with your Google account or with your Facebook account or whatever it would be. So you have your email, create your own wallet, and those applications can leverage that. And that is bringing down the barriers through the wall. Think about, GameFi is another one, right? Sophisticated GameFi users is one. But if you look at the likes of, look at the majority of people who play games, you think about they use a PlayStation or they use an Xbox. They use the PlayStation 3 for 7, 8 years, 9 years. This is inferior hardware, right? But this is inferior hardware with a very pleasurable UX experience. There's a sacrifice that people make there in terms of superior performance. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm probably insulting a lot of the PC natives out there that, and I'm also the same, that are built, that built phenomenal PCs and they build it with the technologies out there and they get a slightly superior performance, but is slightly slightly more difficult to do. So it's not the majority of people, and that's why companies like PlayStation, Xbox deliver this solution so it comes through. So how do you make that more simple? How do you understand what that trend is? Okay, we've got to help people not hit so many walls, not have so much friction to onboard. We even talk about this, and we'll talk about Fuse Charge, I'm sure, in a little while. But we talk about this. It's about how do we make things easier, and we talk about we're saying payment solutions leveraging blockchain. But when we talk about it internally, we talk about e-commerce. We don't think about it as blockchain payments or crypto payment. We think about it as e-commerce because that's what it will be. It will be part of that payment system as we go forward.
I think it's I mean, you said some really interesting things there as well that kind of pique ideas in my mind as well. It's like, arguably, just going back to what you said about real world applications on Fuse. Arguably, Fuse has positioned itself for real world apps since day one. Whereas I think what we've seen over the last few years is the development of a lot of throwaway applications that were like tests and benchmarks for what blockchain could do, right? And it's like we saw DeFi, we saw NFT hype, we saw PFP collections. But I personally kind of see now 2022 as this year of divergence of everything together to actually deliver something good in the real world, like ticketing, like P2P marketplaces. Arguably, this is exactly the moment in time where Fuse is going to become most relevant, I think.
Yeah, I mean, very challenging economic environment on a macro level in a lot of countries. You mentioned use cases that have been built on Fuse. People Eats started as People Eats, right? Fantastic use case. Started as People Eats is now called People. People Eats was a challenger to the kind of high cost of usage for Deliveroo and Uber Eats in Liverpool, right? So they developed this product, and so they worked out a way that by utilizing the Fuse network, merchants could pay lower fees, and consumers could pay lower fees, and therefore there's a sharing. So you lower cost, higher profits. Like, that's fantastic. Plus, they were able to use a kind of an incentive basis to reward users for their loyalty within that space. So great project.
Good progress.
People now have multiple amounts of projects. There's a project they've got, YourGaf it's called. So YourGaf is now where you're able to pay your rent. So think about like individual, in the UK, I don't know if it's ubiquitous everywhere, but you have to pay a security deposit when you move into the house, right? So usually around 6 weeks in advance, but that's just 6 weeks of money. It doesn't go towards your rent as it comes through. It doesn't go towards any of the cost of living. It's just 6 weeks of your money taken off the table. And for a lot of people, that's quite challenging. This on People, the project, YourGaf, is built in a way that there's a smart contract between the user and the landlord, and every month 5% of that contribution is moved into a escrow. So to protect and this going forward, you're freeing up working capital, and as they pay their rent on time, the People token is used to incentivize users to pay their rent on time. So there's an incentivization to pay your rent on occasion, so that they're goal driven to kind of make sure they pay their rent. And the working capital, the landlord is staying secure. Okay, they're not getting 6 weeks up front, so there could be something. But you open your business or property from a landlord's perspective to a greater number of clients who maybe don't have that capital to spare, and individuals who just need to find a home to set up a base to continue to grow their lives and don't have to make challenging decisions that, oh, do I need to eat this week, or do I need to change my tire for my car? Like, if I don't change my tire, I can't get to work. Very hard to continue to make good decisions under pressure. It's like not they say they make bad decisions, but it makes it more challenging, right? A lot of pressure is challenging. But things like YourGaf really do affect the kind of the social good, and it contributes. So People Eats, and then Shokel as well. They're set up in, I believe, Coventry and Manchester. They work with the People team, but they have their own thing going on, or completely their own project. Great work by those guys. But I should mention they're very much their own entity, as they are Shokel. But they do fantastic things, right? They encourage shopping from local convenience stores, grocery stores, this kind of thing, and supporting a gig economy working space as well.
I think it's very admirable steps, isn't it, towards that internal economies and things like that. And I think also a point to mention is that, as you said, difficult economic times ahead, recession. What do people look for during recession? They cut out luxury items, and they tend to try to reduce the costs of their essentials, right? And they try to look at, so say for an example, you're running events and you need to print off 2,000 tickets for every event. It's pretty expensive. Why not shift to NFT ticketing, for example, and save yourself a margin there? I think
Yeah.
we're going to enter a space where blockchain, real world application will finally find its true place in the world, and be like, people will understand, oh, it's more than a it's more than a monkey face or a yield farming opportunity. Like, we can use this and actually get somewhere.
Tremendous utility, right? If you think about the immutable notion of them, in like trade finance is a great example. Invoicing, you may need working capital. You can get like money on, like, if you think about trade finance, traditional trade finance, it's like 15% if you're a small medium business, like to kind of to be able to kind of get trade finance. Whereas if you're a BP or a Shell, you get 0.2, 0.3%. It just locks it higher and higher and higher. It has this compound effect of creating more gaps. But the blockchain kind of levels that, right? That levels that space. It levels the opportunity that go through. So,
Yep,
why are we
absolutely.
going to be at 10%? Because we do believe that there's an impact here, right? We think there are good things to be done with this, and we think we can help people leverage the blockchain for their own benefit.
That's what it's all about, right? Like, we've got to change the status quo of how things are done. We've got to show people, and like we said, we want to onboard our mums. And I also think you made a really good point there about onboarding generally. People are always reaching for the next goal. I would argue that perhaps we haven't dealt with the crypto. I don't like MetaMask that much. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's fine. I'll use it. But it's not fun what we do on the blockchain, and it's quite time consuming. And I also want some remedies to this. I'm not just like, oh, I'm happy. I don't want to be like the guy in the room, the only one who knows how to do the transaction, And I think
the entire family, you'll end up doing all the transactions for all your friends and all your family.
Exactly. So you want to be, and I just think that you're so right in what you're saying, is that while some people are chasing the next milestone of mass adoption, let's not forget about the whole bunch of people that supported us over the last decade to get to where we are, and give them better services too. So yeah, I really that really resonated with me what you're saying there as well. All right, let's move on to some. I've got some token questions.
Okay.
Ooh. Should we expect any tier 1 exchange listings for Fuse, I assume, in the coming months, or are talks currently on hold due to market situation?
Opportunities are always going to be assessed as and when as they come through, right? We never put anything on hold. Like I said, we don't pause, we don't stand still at Fuse, right? We're always trying to find a way forward. So we don't pause any conversations, but we're determined to deliver like the right value for money for all the stakeholders that are involved, right? So I think that is about as broad as I can make the statement. I think that's yes, 100%. We want more listings. We'll work out how to get them, and we'll do it in the right way. Yeah. We'll not be hard over a barrel.
All good. No, that's fine. All right. So next question is about. Actually, we'll go with the emission rate. So, can you give us an approximate time frame on when we will be voting for the reduction of the inflation rate of Fuse tokens? And also, are you planning to set a limit or a fixed total supply for Fuse tokens someday? Oh.
Good question. Good question. So yeah, of course, at some point we would like to get a fixed total supply in. The functionality of the network is first and foremost the priority, right? The road to decentralization requires validators, requires incentivized validators to go through. Approximate time frame we're voting for the reduction of the inflation and the Fuse time. Yeah, that's a very good question, right? Let's go again. I'm going to do this thing. People are going to call me a politician by the time I finish, but let's have a look at it in a different way. We believe in a multi-chain future, right? So the future is 100% multi-chain. That requires strong analysis of all the other chains that exist out there in terms of kind of liquidity placement, liquidity incentives. I refer to this as kind of an overall liquidity profile. Yeah. How do we create the right incentives to ensure that there's a healthy liquid market? There's a healthy incentive for the validators that want to secure the chain to continue to do so, and for new high quality validators to onboard. These are all part of that. We're looking to onboard a number of different strategic partners that can help us work and look at this in more depth, look at the data. So using services like Covalent or the Graph in order to kind of really gain a data-driven approach on this, right? Yeah. And really, actually, in terms of the reduction of inflation, we're a decentralized network, right? And anybody can propose this. I know it's been proposed before. We can vote on it. We can push it through. But I'd also like some stronger opinions from people who've really dug into the data to help guide us as we go forward, right? Ultimately, it's not my decision, right? It's not my decision as to whether or not we reduce that or not. But yeah, I know the conversation is beginning. Reduction of inflation is a valid question. It's a valid point. But for any healthy monetary system, you do need a healthy inflation, or you need to incentivize those. I always think of it like this, right? You buy bonds, you buy 5-year yields, 10-year yields. Well, what is that? You're essentially like a delegated proof of stake. You're delegating your central bank, right?
Yeah.
So and now they're in these different situations, and they need to adapt as well. So we'll adapt in course with the market to ensure that we can attract the right number of people and keep the profile good on this.
I'd agree with you, Carl. And it's quite a short-term vision, I think, to look at those things constantly as well. When you're looking, perhaps we look at the bigger picture. We're not so much interested in that. Perhaps it's so it might be more seen as a short-term fix, but it's not something that really is that interesting. But as you said rightly, it's not our decision to make. It's a decision that can go to a proposal. So yeah, okay, I think that's pretty well answered, Carl, to be honest. When will the 2022 roadmap be released?
Imminently. We're playing tennis with each other about everything that goes forward. So yeah, we're imminently.
And Mark has outlined some pretty strong values for the year ahead in his recent Medium article. Well, not so recent actually. He's actually gone out and outlined what we're working towards. But yeah, roadmaps are dynamic is something people are almost like predefined to ask for a roadmap these days, right? Like it's like, show me your roadmap. And it's like, well, you could just kind of keep in touch with what we're doing on a constant basis and understand where we're trying to go. Like, I think it's important for that as well.
That question is good. To go back to thinking about this, where we're hiring, we just hired a new lead blockchain dev. We're hiring more technical people. We're hiring more business people. We want everybody bought in, right? So
yeah,
roadmap is imminent, but we need input from everybody in the core team in order to do that, and we need to release it, and the community is going to have input in that, right? So it's not they may challenge the roadmap, and they're right to do so. So it's a dynamic process, but our proposal will be imminent.
Okay, cool. So keep your eyes open for this, guys. All right, so let's move on a little bit because we've got a question here that goes to it's about Fuse Studio. So this person is asking, why should people use Fuse Studio and how is it being marketed or incentivized? How are you going to onboard people to use Fuse for payments?
So Fuse Studio is actually going away. So don't use Fuse Studio if you've got a Wayback link.
But it's evolving, right? It's evolving. It's
evolving. It's going to, in that context. But really, the developers on Fuse have a home now, right? And the technical support, the kind of infrastructure support. Fuse Charge, which was launched on Monday. I can't tell you what the date was, but it was launched on Monday. Is going forward, right? So Fuse Charge sits somewhere in between an Infura and Played, right? Could be say Played for crypto. I know a lot of people say Played for crypto, but it's the Fuse Labs team that are going to be able to support various different blockchain services to support people building on the Fuse network. So that also harks into the second part of how are you going to onboard Fuse for payment people to Fuse for payments, right? So Fuse Charge is part of that strategy and part of that goal. How else are we going to onboard people for payments? Like I say, people are already being onboarded for payments in the Fuse network, right? We're still looking to add more tooling, right? So we want to add tooling for direct debit recurring payment style solutions. We want to add the ability for people to transact with traditional e-commerce sites in the Web 2 space. So we're looking at tooling there and working through that. Can we find a good debit card partner? Maybe we onboard someone specifically for that as well. And secondary to that is, I mentioned that we had Bitaza, who are an integrator in that space in Thailand. What's important is that you have to remember that we're a team that maintains an open source blockchain, and we have a team that also supports extra payments on board. It's important that in this space that you establish a very healthy channel, right? So you need distributors or resellers and integrators or solutions providers that are existent there that are educated and go through there. So we need to run developer workshops. We need to onboard those people. And part of that is that we, as, like I mentioned, blockchain people, we're not designed to hunt for people who require payment solutions, right? But there are plenty of people out there whose bread and butter is delivering payment solutions. And we need to engage with more and more of those as we go through. This period, and you know, the less volatile nature of the current market, it actually opens the door to more enterprise solutions or SMB solutions. They're more willing to get into things. They like a crabbing market more than they like an up or a down market, right? Forecast is very, very important. So I think it's just, in terms of onboarding people, there's many, many things to do, right? I've been in this, like my corporate experiences around building channels and this kind of thing. So I've been in the space since 2012, right? From a blockchain perspective, like personally, but I've also done I've got a tremendous wealth of corporate experience. Not to say this about me, but we have all these
but
different business
role.
It plays a big role, yeah.
Yeah, it plays its part, Carl. You've got experience in other enterprise. I think it absolutely plays its part. Not so much, you know, being involved in blockchain is one thing, but that overarching knowledge of how to take products to market is massive, right? And
yeah, and also just, you know, having a product that is suitable for market, or having a team that can support it is how you're going to onboard Fuse for payments. Making a blockchain that is designed to service alternative payment rails.
Yeah. All right, thinking about payments, we've got a couple of very cool questions relating to that. So just to go back to that, so Fuse Studio is becoming Fuse Charge, and so keep an eye open for that. And it's I would say reach out to BD at fuse.io on email and sort of start a conversation about using that and getting involved there. All right, so next question. The Fuse Cash wallet is very nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
But it's not so friendly with new crypto users, being a smart contract wallet. So, is an upgrade in progress? I want to go to the market and pay with it. I want to send a variety of tokens, and I want to bridge more coins with it. So this guy really likes it, really wants to use it. What you got for him, Carl?
Well, the former answer makes a lot of sense. Thanks for the compliment. I mean, Fuse Cash is a very nice wallet, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
For the new crypto user, we're trying to make it more friendly. I think actually once it's there, once it's installed and ready to use, for the new crypto user, it's actually pretty easy, right? You can,
I think so.
If I have your phone number and I don't have your address, I can send you money across Fuse Cash. But also look at it as Fuse Cash is an open source wallet, right? It's available for anybody to fork and or use. And like I say, we utilized it in the example I gave before is in Thailand. Mystic Valley was a festival that we supported, utilizing kind of Fuse wallet technology there. We did 150,000 transactions. We did over $1 million in revenue for those 2 days of the festival. And you know, when you go to those festivals and they're like, your medium of exchange is you give them some cash, or you pay on the debit card and they give you like paper tickets or plastic something like this. And like, this is pretty insecure. It's like we've gone back. I mean, it's kind of like cash, but not cash, right? So you can't exchange those back either, right? You can't exchange them back. You can't use them for, well, maybe you can. I don't remember a time when you can, but you can't exchange them back. You can't use them for future things. You just got it. You got to spend it.
Yeah.
So we replaced that for that particular festival with Fuse Cash, and with the white label Fuse wallet, not Fuse Cash, but the underlying open source technology, right? Open source technology, and people made what would have cost $81,000 utilizing Visa or Stripe or even PayPal or whatever it would be, 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction.
Yeah.
In real time money, in real time Fuse cost $100. Back then it was like less than $1, I think, even at that time when they did that thing. So we're committed to that. We're doing these things. If you have a look on the App Store, if you have a look on the Play Store, you'll see there are forks of the Fuse Cash wallet that exists there. And if you look into the publisher, people deliver their own, you know, Collectivo had their own wallet there. People deliver their own solutions utilizing this wallet. This wallet is, of course, we're always looking to upgrade, we're always looking to evolve, right? But this wallet also allows, it's a modular wallet, right? If you've got an application, if you're a dApp that launches on the Fuse network, there's nothing stopping you slotting your own solution into that and launching that as an iOS or a Play Store app, you know, like immediately off the bat. We've done the work for that to be utilized. So when you ask, do you want to go to the market and pay with it? Yeah, eventually that's going to be the case, right? We want to get to that stage where it is, but we also need market providers in. And like I said, like, it's not going to be we don't have a big team. If we're going to get people to go to each and every business to try and sell them a solution, one, we don't have the resource to scale it and or support it. And two, we don't have the team to continue to make a strong impact and effect on that. So build a channel, build a healthy integration partnership, bring on more devs, bring together the business case, outline the commercial advantages of these things. And it's a long journey, and we can't get this done overnight.
No, of course. But just thinking about the festival there as well, Carl. I mean, we didn't even mention the hardware that's required for a festival to take payments like this at an event. I mean,
Yeah.
saving there must have been massive for them.
Yeah, massive, of course.
Surely they're just using their phones, right?
They're just using their phones and they're using QR codes. You just exchange, and the finality of the block. I'm not trying to tell you now that the finality of the Fuse blockchain is like the fastest thing that's out there. It's not, but it is functional. It is secure. It is robust. It is tested. We're doing hundreds of thousands of transactions per day on the chain. Like we're a robust, solid infrastructure that has proven that it can support a large number of transactions in a real world environment on multiple occasions.
Yeah. And that's what it's about. Like, that real world implementation to really showcase what Fuse is capable of, I think is super important over the time. And I think we'll see more of that. And we are seeing more projects like that come through, aren't we?
Yeah.
All right. Another question. This is a big question, so I'm going to maybe break it, but it's in line with what we're talking about here. So getting fiat into crypto can often be a frustrating and cumbersome task. Yes. With apps like Google Pay, Apple Pay, PayPal, Venmo, Square, and Zelle, moving money around digitally has been made much easier, but it's still difficult to move that money into crypto. What is the Fuse Network's plans to help alleviate this issue? Can the above-mentioned payment systems be integrated into Fuse Cash? And when can we expect to see this happen? So the first question was, can it happen? And then when will I see it? So let's break this down a bit, man.
Let's get into it, right? Let's get straight into it. So,
all right.
Apps like Google Pay, Apple, PayPal, Venmo, Square, Zelle are centralized providers, right? With relatively high fees for both sides of the party. This is the trade-off, right? So the fee that you pay is not because they're permissionally like moving this around and incentivizing people to do that. There's a tremendous amount of bureaucracy that exists within those organizations. If we harken all the way back to Satoshi and we're trying to take out double spend, right? We want to remove the double spend. We want to remove this part of it. Actually, most of these systems are built on this actual idea of kind of centralized payments and double spend, and you get through because you're part of the team, right? You're in the party. You're part of the regulatory framework. You go through that. So moving money around digitally has never been easier, yes, but what you give up for it has never been greater. You know, your data, your understanding of where you spend things like this. Banks used to have access to this information. When you have your debit card, when you take your money from the bank, they know you took the money from the bank. They've got a general idea of where you're spending it, how you're spending it, what you're doing. Now, with the kind of Google Pays, Apple Pays, they know which way you're taking to the supermarket. They know when you're paying on the supermarket. They know if you've browsed mobile sites within that supermarket before executing that payment on your conversion rate, and these things all exist there. So this is the trade-off, right? You can move it around pretty quickly but there's a trade-off. From the crypto space, I guess that people are not necessarily that it's harder, it's more accountable to the individual, but it also doesn't plug in directly to that system. So there's a trade-off. How much do you want to give up to get those kind of services? It's your basis. And then this is where we're at, right? So P2P transfers, and then I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that these are the trade-offs in which you can kind of operate. Getting money into crypto it's a new space, right? It's an innovative space. It's a bleeding edge. There is an element of risk that comes with that, and there always is, because you're in self-custody of it. You know, I can send money to you. We're pretty savvy users, right? Ian? But I can send you something, and I can get something wrong on I can get something wrong on the address, and the money's gone, and that's my responsibility. And that's how that happens. I can't call the bank to get it back, right?
And there's nobody to speak to, and in many ways, I think that's just what everyone's used to, having a help. Somebody to help.
Like I actually, just to digress slightly, I actually made an order online the other day, and it was with a shop that was no longer in operation anymore, right? So the money left, and there was like a payment provider, and it went away. And so I know that actually, if I want to get the money back, I can go to the bank, I can call them, I can produce the proof, and this, that, and the other, and that. But ideologically, that doesn't work for me, right? I went into something, I paid for that thing, and so like ideologically for me, my accountability says that money is gone, right? That's how it works. I made
You're fully converted, Carl. Like you're not even asking the bank for your money.
yeah, I'm not asking the bank for it back, but that's everybody has their own different business.
I get it. I get it.
That's how it is. But that's the trade-off, right? And I don't want to maybe I don't want them to know the ins and outs of what I do with my money or how I felt about what had happened, but ideologically I take that path, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a trade-off, and in the future, yeah, I don't think that these things will be questions as such. There will be bridges into these spaces. There will be an easy way to move in. We have to find every negotiation finds it's not compromise, but finds a win-win situation for both. So for centralized providers, for crypto solutions, for the innovation part of it, there's a win-win solution for both parties. Everybody has to be on board with it, and this is a much bigger conversation than just us, right? It's macro. It's like a macro environment thing. The EU, I think, just passed new legislations and regulations on how they would manage the. I mean, I think the US obviously have their own regulations. There are multiple different smaller jurisdictions that have their own regulations, and it will be on a jurisdictional case by case basis, right? So, how can the Fuse network alleviate that issue as we go through? Well, we just make it very easy for people. We want to make it very easy for the tooling to be on chain to allow people that don't have access to financial instruments, standard or exotic, to utilize financial instruments in underserved jurisdictions. So focusing on, like I said, we did some stuff in Southeast Asia that was pretty effective. Where else are there underserved communities? Maybe we look at Africa, South America, or somewhere where they don't have a financial infrastructure that solves the problems as best they can go through, right? But we also have to make it very easy. So tooling on our side in terms of, we mentioned before, bridging Web 2 to Web 3, this kind of ubiquity of being able to sign on with your existing accounts. This is a win-win solution, right? Okay, all that stuff I just said about giving up extra data to kind of give away things, this is a compromise, right? You're giving up some data, it gives you an ability to recover your addresses, but equally at the same time, you have an address in which you can utilize on the blockchain quite freely and usefully.
I think it's like, but just speaking specifically about Fuse in terms of integrations that have happened in 2022, because there's two things that are quite interesting here, like Arcana and Ramp, I think, kind of solve some of these problems in our ecosystem and the wider ecosystem. So do you want to just talk about them for a second? I think, Carl, like Arcana is social logins and Ramp is fiat on-ramping, right?
Yeah, well, Arcana is social logins. It's one part of them. They've got a bigger stack that can kind of distribute storage solutions and other pieces that exist there as well. So you see they have these social logins, but in terms of like actual data for the chain, you can move that to a distributed storage. So you move away from cloud and you move it into different ways, right? So this is also projects like this and projects that are, and Arcana have a really strong focus in India, right? And not in economies where there's still like a lot of cash, or if you remember actually back when they had the election recently, they removed one of the denominations from circulation.
Yes.
Can't remove denominations from the blockchain in those denominations there. So yeah, no, but they have a good focus there, and they have a great focus on bridging Web 2 to Web 3, and actually also producing decentralized solutions in the Web 3 space. Ramp, different model entirely. Ramp is a fiat onboard and off ramp, but they're extending jurisdictionally. I think now they're available in 38 states. I think the last time I checked in the US. And back to that point I made about jurisdictional case by case basis, they are very well integrated into the regulatory framework, and they're working state by state to ensure that they meet the regulations for the financial frameworks or the kind of retail frameworks that exist in those states as they go through. Fantastic, right? But takes time. These things take a lot of time, but Ramp are fantastic, great partner. Always been easy to use. We love Ramp.
It makes, I think if people are thinking that there's some solutions in place already on Fuse, which make it very easier to onboard users into dApps. So I think it's worth saying that as well. All right, so next question. Okay, so too many applications are being developed and used actively on different blockchains whose infrastructure is not as good as Fuse network. Nice, thank you. What exactly do you think other networks of this kind are doing better than Fuse? I think we touched on this early.
We did. I mean, there's multiple things, right? Could be existing connections, existing relationships. I'm trying not to lead with money. Existing connections, existing relationships. Just could be greater awareness. Like we like working internally, thinking about how do we onboard what we're terming more Fuse natives, right? So how do we, and really honestly, I'm going to hark back to that idea. Web 2 to Web 3 should not be as big a jump as it should be right now, right? So we need to lower that down and come through. They give away more incentives, right? We don't necessarily go. We haven't been as aggressive with yield as maybe some of these the chains that have gone on. And how many of those applications still around, and how many were super functional? There was a lot of there was a lot of chip spreading, right? So you're placing a lot on the table. There was a lot of chip spreading as it would go through. But we've been very diligent with the resources that we have, and we've gone through. Maybe that hasn't allowed us to make as many bets in the bull market that's gone through, but we're not laying off people. Like we're in a bear market. We're not actively going out there trying to lay off like 50% of the workforce. It doesn't make sense. We're managing, we're working through, and we're continuing to build in this space, right? So maybe the networks. Let's ask this question again in a year. I encourage you to ask this question again in a year and see if those other networks that go through are still in the same way. You see certain networks have big influencers and big stakeholders that come on. That when those stakeholders disappear or leave, then there are real problems on the network. I think Andre Cronje on Phantom was a great example. Like very much a single individual had so much influence over a network, and they had so many great applications. And I thought Phantom was a good chain, right? And it still is a good chain. By the way, let me just digress, but we had a call the other day about an opportunity, and just I'm warning everybody out there, right? There was a deep fake on Andre Cronje. There was a deep fake. He was image. It was crazy. It was so easy. He was on the image. I didn't realize deep faking was that easy nowadays. Just be aware, everybody, that deep faking is pretty easy. You can just pick up a simple app and you can go out there and do it. So just as a warning in general to everybody that's out there. It was crazy. It was crazy. I couldn't even believe it. So these things are going out there, and but he's a very influential individual. We were told that he's going to be on the call. We joined the call. Soon realized it was not actually him in terms of the way that he was communicating. But it's crazy. But as in to say, too many applications developed on other projects. Why are they developing on other projects? Maybe sometimes there's too much dependency upon single points of exuberation that exist there.
Definitely. I mean, I spend a lot of time, as you know, analyzing, reading, writing about decentralized applications, and I agree with everything that you're saying, Carl. Just because a network suddenly gets 50 dApps and some of them peak for a month, it doesn't mean it's a successful blockchain, does it? You've got to have retention, and I think retention and stickiness for dApps is very important as well. And let's not forget that Fuse Network's got a top 5 DeFi dApp in Good Dollar, and it's been there for nearly 7 months now, sitting in the top 5 DeFi dApps as tracked by DApp Radar. This is an impressive feat for a dApp which is generally giving out UBI. It's not doing yield farming. It's not doing gaming. It's not doing GameFi. It's different, and it's real world, and it's a top 5. And I think it's important to mention that as well, because you don't need thousands and thousands of applications. You need some strong players, right? Let's look at Ethereum, Uniswap, OpenSea. Who else? Curve. Many. I'm not going to list them off, but it's not millions, is it? It's a handful of strong players that lead the network, and I think Fuse is heading in that direction with NFT marketplaces like Artrific, People. It's coming together. So it's an important
very much support that. 100%. We've got to go. We've always felt like real world usage is the thing that's going to get this whole space over the line. So you're right. Fantastic project, Adela, right? We don't actually we talk about them, but we don't talk about them enough. I think they do a lot of social good out there. They provide financial support to individuals that wouldn't ordinarily get it. UBI is a controversial topic, depending on who you ask about it. I think we're moving to a future where you think about the actual forget the actual social aspect of it. The administration of kind of means tested social security is pretty expensive. Like it's actually very, very expensive. And Good Dollar actually helping on the social good with very minimal overhead. They have a validator on the Fuse network that helps them in perpetuity with their business model as well. It's a very well run business, and they bootstrapped as well, and they have a tremendous amount of daily active users.
Yeah, they're up in it's like 250k active users a day, and this is from minimal marketing spend and generally just having a good product. And like it's a strong product. So, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because sometimes people forget this is a Fuse network DApp as well. So, right, Carl, we've been talking for a long time. I think we've almost nailed our time allowance. But the most important question, obviously, is when Binance, Carl?
Yesterday.
Tomorrow. Day before yesterday.
Well, I would say be careful what you ask for it in that context, right? So let's put this in we did I always say this is so funny with Fuse. It's not really a thing, but it's just quite funny coincidence.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
The day that we did the voltage TGE first day, there was a small war that started happening in Europe. So it was like, I say a small war. This is the same day that Russia went into the Ukraine, sorry. And so this was day one. Then we had Huobi, and then there was like another big macro downturn that existed in the same space.
Yeah.
So Binance could result in the end of the world, but you know, as it goes through, look, we're always working diligently.
There's a leap there.
No, what I'll say is about that is it's obviously something we want to do.
Yeah.
I mentioned before, we're trying to make a healthy liquidity profile. We're looking for the right opportunities to go through, ones that are responsible for the stakeholders that are involved in the project, and ones that are responsible for bringing on board future stakeholders and future users of the Fuse network.
Yeah.
I guess that means soon, right? But you know, we work diligently.
Tomorrow, right, Carl?
Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday.
Don't tell the devs, they won't. All right. And on that final note, I think what we're going to do is we've answered all the community questions today, and we had some really excellent questions. I think, Carl, like they obviously care about what we're doing and where we're pushing and what we're doing to elevate Fuse and what we're doing to push dApps into the network as well. So it's amazing to get all those questions in. And what we'll do is we're going to have another community call pretty soon with our CEO, where he's going to outline more clear direction for the next 6 months. So what we've done here is talk about what's been happening, where we're headed, and then we'll dive deeper into the kind of, because a lot of people asking about the roadmap. We'll dive into that on our next call. So I just want to say thank you to Carl for answering all these questions and putting up with me for 1 hour. That's been amazing. Thanks.
I actually want to say thanks to the community for putting those questions out. You don't pitch any slow balls. I'll say that.
Yeah, man.
So that's good, but it's challenging, and that's what we want from our community. We don't want a community that's just along for the ride. We want them to be actively involved in the development of this network. And you know, these are not simple questions that they're putting forward. You just, like you say, they thought long and hard about what it is that they want from the Fuse network, what the Fuse network is doing. And no, thank you very much for doing that, for keeping us
keeping us on our toes, right? Like we love that. Like we need that. We love that. We need that. We love the community questions because it shows us what you guys are thinking about. Like we're not so often in this space, you can get raveled up in what's happening around you that you can lose focus of who you're serving, and we're serving our community. So, that's why we're doing these calls. So hopefully everybody today has learned something extra about Fuse, and the people that ask the questions, amazing. Thank you so much. I hope we've covered those.
Great, actually. Thank you, Ian, so much, and thank you to the community for sending up questions. Thank you for thinking so diligently about it. And actually, the other part of that is that there's a lot of macro considerations that go into that 12 to 24 month plan. How are you guys going to integrate with kind of more of the centralized digital payment providers? Phenomenal. Like we think about. Great that you're thinking about these things. We think about these things. Hopefully, some of these answers are kind of helped you along with your thinking, and we want it to be an interactive engagement and growth with each other. We want to grow together, right? So
that's it. And if you want to reach out to us, you can do, as we flashed up the thing earlier. If you're interested in launching dApps on the Fuse network, then just reach out to bd@fuse.io, and someone will take care of you there and start that hand-holding process that we spoke about and getting you into the network. So, and if you just want to stay in touch with everything that we do, then Twitter is our kind of best place to go. So it's just twitter.com/Fuse_network, and you'll get all our updates and everything there. Plus, as you say, we do loads of AMAs. We're going to do more community calls. And we're generally just going to be here more on show, talking to you guys about what we're up to here at Fuse. So for me, thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. Nice one, Carl. Carl's a busy man. Nice one, Carl. And we'll end it here. All right. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.